All right, we are back with part 2 of Cocktails with Curt.
Hey, I'm Curt, and these are the cocktails.
Look at him, a couple more sips, and he might really loosen up.
Whatever. Go ahead.
But anyways, so in the last video, we talked about our experience with the failed closing of the Smyrna house. And at that time, we thought this was our dream house and everything like that. I always tell you guys, everything happens for a reason. And we look back, and Curt, we could talk about this, we weren't at that time when we started looking at 2012 for that Smyrna house, we were forcing it. We weren't financially ready.
We weren't financially ready. I think that at that time, our mindset, at least mine, I speak for myself, was probably like so many of, the clients that we get or the leads that we get where you're in the situation where you're paying a ridiculous amount in rent. Mm-hmm. So you think that, okay, well, I'm tired of paying rent. I'd rather just pay the same amount in a mortgage.
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't really work. It doesn't really translate that way.
Tell them a little bit about we went with FHA, and I told you guys about it. You have different things that can change your payment. Your principal is the same. Your interest rate's going to be the same, but what are the things that you've seen just as being a homeowner?
I mean, your homeowner's insurance is most likely going to increase. It rarely decreases.
Right.
Your property taxes, especially if you're living in an area that is growing and developing, that's always going
You want your property to
go
up in value.
It's the gift and the curse. You want it to go up in value, but then you pay for that, and with your taxes. So
don't maximize. Like when we were doing it the first time, we were at the very top.
We were pushing the max of our budget and not giving ourselves any room for it to grow. But again, we were thinking about it like, oh, well, we know we can afford this as far as rent.
Right.
So I know we can afford this as far as a mortgage, not realizing that the only thing that stays the same is the principal and the interest if you have a fixed rate. Right. Everything else goes up.
And then not to include landscaping, which we've experienced.
HOA, if you live in an HOA
community, stuff like that. So the moral of that story is don't force it. And to really, we get calls from a lot of people, my lease is up, right? In 60 days.
I think the most common, my lease is up in 60 days. I'm tired of paying rent. I want to buy a house.
Right.
And and this is no judgment zone. This is no shade, no judgment zone. But chances, 85% of those leads that we get that call under those terms are never ready to buy a house.
No,
never ready to buy a house.
Because it's what we're saying is, and hopefully you follow us because of the education that we deliver too. Because again, just from that last example, the failure of it and then the success of buying a new home and what we did right, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, is that the things that are really important are financial reserves.
Yep, absolutely.
Even if you have a good credit, and people would say, oh, I could approve you at 580 or higher.
You don't want to go for that because here's how it works. Yes, there are some lenders out there that will approve people for, a score that's, below 640. But they're in the business of making money. So for every deal they complete, they are going to get paid off of that transaction. So they don't really have they don't have the vested interest in your, financial future or success of that, right? So they're going to approve you, but they're going to give you the highest interest rate possible to approve you. Whereas, why don't you just be responsible and say, you know what, I recognize there are things that I need to clean up to get my score to a position where I don't need to settle for the highest interest rate and then ultimately end up overpaying for a house.
Because you're the thing about it is you're locked into that rate.
Right. This is not rent.
I mean, you could
technically
refinance, but another thing they don't tell you is when you refinance, most of the time, you're going to have to roll in closing costs again. Yeah. So all that money that you paid, even if you throw another $2,000 or $3,000 back into it, defeats the purpose. So what you want to do is do it right the first time. Yeah. Get that score up. If somebody if you get it in advance, 6 months, a year out, have your credit run. People are so scared, right, about those hard inquiries. But I always tell people and our clients.
Well, here's the thing.
Tell them
as far as a hard inquiry, I would say get your credit run. If you don't know where you are, you want to just figure out, okay, what is my score like today? Take the hit. It's 5 points.
You need to know where you are to where
you're starting from, right? Now, if you're at the place where you're ready to move forward with buying a house, you can get your score run as many times as you want within a 30-day period, and you will only lose that original 5-point hit because the bureaus recognize that you're looking for credit for the same type of thing. So they're not going to ding you every time you're looking for it if you do that. So I don't think you should be afraid
to get that credit.
You
have to know, you
have to know where you're starting.
Credit Karma. It's used for like notifications to kind of give you an idea, but we've had it run before and it's like 15, 20 points.
If not higher. I mean, those are educational scores. I think those are really best for just telling you what's showing up on your credit report.
Right.
I would not rely at all on the score that it gives you, because you could see a score and your real FICO score could be anywhere from 20 to 50 points higher or lower than what Credit Karma shows. So I wouldn't use that score as where you think you stand, because that's not accurate.
And just going back to the first experience, and why I always tell people, they could you put their mind at ease a little bit about how important, even more so, because rates are pretty much going to be the same across the board. Maybe if you're going with a broker, they might go a little bit higher. A broker is somebody that's like not a direct lender. They kind of broker it out and then they sell it to a bank. In general, if you're working with a Fidelity, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Guild, Homestar, stuff like that, and so those are some of our lender referrals that have done work for us in the past. But once you say it's not so much about the rate, because those are going to be generally the same, but it's the customer service and explaining, because how bad that first experience was. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you want to work with the lender who is going to be responsive, and that is not just Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You want somebody where if you're out looking at a house on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday evening, you want somebody where if you need to reach out to your lender to say, hey, I think I want to make an offer. Can you run the numbers for me to let me know what my payment will be? You don't want somebody that's going to either not answer their phone until Monday or tell you, well, send me an email and I'll let you know Monday.
Yeah.
So I think that, the first experience that we had with the lender, he was actually responsive. The problem with him was he wasn't truthful. He would always oversell, but never deliver. And again, we lost thousands of dollars on that deal as a result of that. So you want to be careful. If somebody can promise you everything, and
think about
it. Be very careful of that, because really a lot of what can happen is all in your control. So if you have your finances together, you have your job together, and you're giving the paperwork in a timely fashion like you're supposed to, a lot of that is you control that anyway. So don't let somebody promise you that they can sell you this dream, because chances are it could be something a little suspect about.
Yeah. I mean, because lenders, and it's full disclosure, they get paid for getting the deal done. They don't get paid like regular salaries. So they're going to tell you, and they're going to, even if you're right on that line, they're going to try to sell you that they can get it done. We don't work with those type of people because, like Curt just said, we went through a really bad experience, and what we're trying to build here is those relationships with lenders that have got the job done. We have those conversations, do not BS people if they're on the line. Analyze their credit if they're not there. Get them to a stronger credit score, because that we know how important that is.
And we've had a lot of success stories. I think we've had clients that leads that have turned into clients actually, but when they called us as leads, their credit score was below a 600.
Yeah.
And they basically just followed the direction of the professionals that we professional resources that we put in front of them.
Not credit repairs.
Not credit repair.
Actual
just
lenders.
Lenders that could tell them, if you do these things,
A, B, C, D,
follow it to the T, you will see the difference. There was no scamming. There was no any of that. They did the work, and then those leads became clients. So I think it really comes down to me, how bad you want it. And you can't get discouraged if you find out that you're not as ready for it now as you thought you were. You can't let that discourage you. You have to now put your plan in place to say, okay, I'm not ready now.
We're about to get cut off here, so let me just stop it and we'll pick up the conversation. I think it's another toast time. Okay?
Toast.
All right.